Good morning. Today we're going to go over the second text of the unit entitled Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, written by Frederick Douglass in 1845. Please remember that the essential question for Unit 4 is how did the war between the states redefine America and also what it means to be American. So here's the introduction to the text. Published in 1845, the autobiography, meaning he wrote it himself about his life, narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave, describes Douglass's journey from slavery to freedom. This great American orator, or speaker, provides a factual account of his struggle to educate and free himself and others from the oppression of his times. Remember, slaves were not allowed to be educated, they couldn't learn to read or write. The memoir's vivid descriptions of life as a slave played a key role in fueling the abolitionist movement, that was the movement to stop slavery, in the North prior to the Civil War. In the following excerpt from the middle of the text, Douglass overcomes the odds against him, procuring the assistance of others in teaching himself to read, despite laws prohibiting slaves from learning such skills. So, the introduction is saying that Mr. Douglass used the people around him in order to learn to read and write, breaking laws. There are 4 paragraphs. We're going to go over the first 2, and then I'm going to stop this, and then I'm going to make a new recording for the second 2. Okay, paragraph 1. The plan, remember, this is written by Frederick Douglass in his own words, his memories. The plan which I adopted, and the one by which I was most successful, was that of making friends of all the little white boys whom I met in the street. As many of these as I could, I converted into teachers. With their kindly aid, obtained at different times and in different places, I finally succeeded in learning to read. So he's saying that he used what was around him. He made friends with the white kids who could read, and he made them his teachers. And that was how he learned how to read. When I was sent of errands, I always took my book with me, and by going one part of my errand quickly, I found time to get a lesson before my return. I used also to carry bread with me, enough of which was always in the house, and to which I was always welcome, for I was much better off in this regard than many of the poor white children in our neighborhood. So he would do his chores quickly, so that he would have extra time, and he always brought bread with him because the white kids in his neighborhood were poor. This bread I used to bestow upon the hungry little urchins, meaning the street kids, who, in turn, would give me that more valuable bread of knowledge. So here we have a metaphor. He gave physical bread, and he got nourishment of knowledge. I am strongly tempted to give the names of 2 or 3 of those little boys as a testimonial of the gratitude and affection I bear them, but prudence forbids. Not that it would injure me, but it might embarrass them, for it is almost an unpardonable offense to teach slaves to read in this Christian country. Okay, so he says that he cannot reveal the names of the people that helped him because it was against the law and it would embarrass them and probably get them into trouble. And he uses this in this Christian country. And he uses that as a barb because he's saying that if the country is Christian, then why do they have slaves and they don't treat African Americans as equals? It is enough to say of the dear little fellows that they lived on Philpott Street, very near Durgan and Bailey's shipyard. I used to talk this matter of slavery over with them. I would sometimes say to them, I wish I could be as free as they would be when they got to be men. You will be free as soon as you are 21, but I am a slave for life. Have not I as good a right to be free as you have? These words used to trouble them. They would express for me the liveliest sympathy and console me with the hope that something would occur by which I might be free. Not only did he learn to read from them, but he also instilled the idea of equality for African Americans in these white children that he met. Okay, paragraph 2. I was now about 12 years old, and the thought of being a slave for life began to bear heavily upon my heart. Just about this time, I got hold of a book entitled The Columbian Orator, or Speaker. Every opportunity I got, I used to read this book. Among much of other interesting matter, I found in it a dialogue between a master and his slave. The slave was represented as having run away from his master 3 times. The dialogue represented the conversation which took place between them. And when the slave was retaken the 3rd time, in this dialogue, the whole argument in behalf of slavery was brought forward by the master, all of which was disposed of by the slave. The slave was made to say some very smart as well as impressive things in reply to his master, things which had the desired though unexpected effect, for the conversation resulted in the voluntary emancipation of the slave on the part of the master. So in this book that he read, there was a master and a slave talking to each other, and the slave's arguments were so persuasive that the master finally gave the slave his freedom.